Hey everybody, welcome back to New Comic Book Day Book Club. It's me, your boy, here with John, talking about new comics, or at least one in particular that we read. How you doing?
Doing all right. Got some pretty decent books this week, I think.
Very cool. Say hi to everyone in the chat. We got Todd Christian, who was tailgating, and that's it so far. Thanks for stopping by.
Much appreciated, man.
This week, the main book we're talking about is Donny Cates's new venture in Image called Crossover. Got the same cover, it looks like.
Yeah, cover A. Is that A, right?
Yeah, super cool cover.
Yeah, it was a solid cover A. I looked at a couple of the variants and I was like, I'm not gonna pay extra. I'll get this one.
Yeah, especially when this cover is really cool. So it's by Donny Cates and Jeff Shaw. So pretty good, promising duo of creators. And when you open the first page, there are two quotes, which I found very funny, juxtaposed next to each other. Did you read them?
Absolutely, yeah.
The first one is from Frederick Wortham from Seduction of the Innocent that said, the world of the comic book is the world of the strong, the ruthless, the bluffer, the shrewd deceiver, the torturer, and the thief. In comic books, life is worth nothing. There's no dignity of a human being. And the next one is, kids love chains, Todd McFarlane. So for me, that was off to a good start because I got a lot of amusement out of that.
Yeah,
What's up, Ruben?
I got a good giggle out of that for sure.
That was good stuff. So after that, once the actual original material started, what did you think?
If I'm comparing this to, well, let's just put it this way. I will probably not be getting issue 2. I didn't hate it. I didn't love it. I just thought it was so. People were telling me they thought it was overhyped, and I was like, well, I hadn't heard of it until last week, so I clearly was out of the loop. I think the artwork is solid. I think the story, is interesting enough for what it is, but I don't really care.
I liked it. Yeah, right. I don't know if it's just my state of mind right now, and that this book is kind of about hope and defeating the crazy fanatical side of things, but it struck a chord with me in the moment. So we'll see how I feel about it.
Yeah, I think in the end I'd probably give this a 7. 6, not 6.5. I'd say 7. 7 sounds good.
I'd go right under a 9, like an 8.9.
Ooh, that's a turn of events I was not predicting.
Yeah. Well, hey, we're living in the upside down, so anything can happen right now. One of the things I liked about it. So, let's talk about what the plot is real quick. In the year. In the book, the year, obviously, because this is a work of fiction in case you were wondering. In the year 2017 in Denver, Colorado, suddenly every superhero that has ever been in a comic book manifests into reality and starts murdering people. It's kind of unclear what happened, or if they're fighting each other and people are just getting in the way. Whatever the case may be, there is mass death caused by these heroes or these characters that pop into existence. And then at some point, one of them creates a force field around the city so no one can get in or out, but things are still, there's still madness in the city. And I'll show you the kind of splash page here of just.
That's a spread page, but okay.
You know what, John? I don't got the patience for this today. But really, the story is not about that. That's just the setting for the story. The story is about this girl who it's kind of mysterious as to why she is so connected to it. We find out a little bit later on in the story, but what's up, Bear Island? Thank you for stopping by. And Gray Matter Hulk, yeah. Hey, I have to try to stay positive right now. So she cosplays and works in a comic book store outside of Denver, and there's clearly some kind of political and religious outrage towards the idea of comic books in this universe and the idea of people who support comic books because they see them as being kind of the gateway for which these things came about and are destroying at least Colorado, or at least Denver, if not spreading past that. And thanks for stopping by. So she gets to the comic book store, and it's kind of established that they're one of the last stores, at least in the area, that sells pre-event comics, because there was a huge burning or recall of them, and people, so they're still kind of holding on to this idea. They spot someone shoplifting a book, and it turns out to be this girl who looks like she is like newsprint, basically. Yeah, let me see if I can make it big because it's kind of hard to see that. Yeah, there you go. Who somehow escaped the bubble. And she says, oh, there's a man who can let you out, but we got separated. At this point, you find out that the girl, who's kind of the main character, who's narrating the whole story, also lived in Denver and was separated from her parents, but got out of the bubble. But her parents are still in there. Kachung, what's up? Thanks for stopping by, and I assume Delphia is the other person in the weir, so welcome both of you. And then she's like, oh, I don't know what the man's name was who helped me, but I can draw him. While this is going on, there's a priest outside, or some sort of, it looks like a priest, he's got the collar, but yeah, a religious figure who has his son who's got a black eye, assuming because he caught him with a comic book and gave him a black eye. And he makes him turn the comic book into a Molotov cocktail and throw it into the comic store. And the whole issue wraps up with them looking at the picture that the girl drew, and it appears to be Superman. And the store is burning down. Her name is also Ellipses, which I found very funny. So that's the rundown. Did I miss anything important?
No, I don't think so. I mean, they don't spend a ton of time on the setup for this. It's mostly just, hey, this happened a few years ago, and it shook a ton of people up, and here's where we are now. And then it jumps into Elle's story, where even dressing as a cosplayer, people are throwing bottles at her, and working in, people just like a Planned Parenthood clinic. It's being picketed out front of the comic book store with people holding signs and screaming horrible things. And inside the shop, there's a bunch of people buying their books, but it seems to be centered more around the superhero stuff. There's a guy trying to sell some Golden Age books, and he's getting the shaft because Golden Age sucks.
Not as much as Silver Age.
Not as much. But they're having a little time in the store, and then the little girl shows up, which the drawing of the little girl, I can't figure it out because her head seems enormous.
Huge. I think it's supposed to be like a forced perspective thing. But
okay, I was trying to figure out if it was intentional.
Because in this panel here with the guy carrying her, yeah, she looks like normally. I also found it funny that the girl is wearing an Invincible shirt. I don't know if you saw that.
Let me see. The one that was carrying her? No.
The main girl, yeah.
The main girl, yeah. Well, because she's wearing a hoodie at first, and then she takes it off. I forgot. Yeah, the Invincible. Yeah, there's a better shot of it.
Yeah.
It's a tough gig being a cosplayer, Kachung. I agree.
No. So I actually liked the fact that they did it that way, where they said like, here's the setup, but it's not like really about that. Because the book could have just been about being inside this bubble and being a big like action, mega blockbuster story, but it's not. It's like this very micro story about this girl who works in a comic book store in this world where these crazy things are happening. And I think that's why I kind of connected with it more than if it was this story about a bunch of superheroes fighting each other.
Right. For me, I mean, some of the things that bugged me, I don't know that I mean, I know that every book has to be like, or at least maybe just feels political right now. I just want a break. I don't want superheroes being politicized now. Like, I just want something that's not. And so that irked me right off the bat. It felt a little forced. I like the concept, but I also think what would make the concept cool is being able to use the licensed characters that they're never going to get a chance to use.
Yeah, I'm wondering how they're going to go about that when they've already set up the fact that it's supposed to be Superman.
I have a feeling that when we meet him, his outfit will be ruined enough that you will not be able to discern beyond the hair, and it could be any guy with rippling muscles and blue hair.
Or we're never going to meet him.
Which, yeah. And I mean, obviously, I don't want to prejudge where the story will go, because obviously Donny Cates has earned the right to have my money in advance. But I just feel like this story would be far more interesting if licensing weren't an issue.
Right. It's like Ready Player One. If they could just like go ham and have every superhero in it.
Imagine
very interesting.
Yeah, imagine that movie if they hadn't gotten Spielberg to get behind it, because they wouldn't have been able to use any of his Amblin licensing stuff.
Right.
The Back to the Future car, gone.
But even like that movie was a huge departure from what the book
is.
A
pale reflection for sure.
I mean, it was.
There's this thing coming, by the way.
Yeah, almost a different story.
It was very different.
Same framework.
In the game, very different.
Yeah. But that's neither here nor there for this conversation.
But so, yeah, the licensing thing, the political thing, and then I guess the last part was I just didn't. Again, I feel like there's a thing going on. Maybe it's just me, but I feel like I'm not connecting to characters in these number ones as much anymore. So I don't know that I cared about Elle all that much. And so, I feel like they just give us a hint at her world, but I don't necessarily feel like I care. I don't know.
Yeah, and I agree with the overall sentiment of that. Like before we went on air, we were talking about the Only Finest When They're Dead thing, and how that so far is like you don't get a sense of the characters at all.
Yeah, I think that's way more extreme.
Yeah, I think this I did get a sense of her. Like I don't feel like I know her yet, but that's to be expected from an issue one. Like you shouldn't like have the character's full breadth and width of their personality in the first issue.
I feel like I want an emotional touchstone. And I feel like just telling me that she lost her parents, I don't know that I feel anything about that.
Yeah.
I feel like that's they do it in a very abstract, unemotional way. And it felt like it's got to happen kind of a thing.
Yeah. I mean, and I guess like maybe he's counting a little bit on the connection of people who are reading this or comic fans. And so they'll connect to her as being a comic fan and say like, oh yeah, that would be me in this world. But yeah, the political thing is like, it's funny because it clearly doesn't relate directly to anything in the real world, but it's very, it feels like it could. Like you could replace comic books with A, B, or C, and then all of a sudden it's like, yeah, that makes sense.
Right.
But at the same time, because it's comic books, it doesn't really take a side. because this is something made up. Although I did find it funny that I don't know how long ago he wrote this, but there's this billboard in one shot that says, God hates masks or something like that.
Yeah.
Which if they put that in the last few months, then that's clearly a very direct
on the nose. Yeah.
What's Matt?
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine that Donnie didn't put that in with any intention. I think that was very clearly thought out. That
I would have to assume.
The way that they position it when she's coming into town, it seemed
it's very prominent in the page. So
hard to miss it. It's hard to miss it.
Oh, I mean, we have the book right here. We can just show it if I can find it.
It's like page 4 or something. Yeah, right here.
Yeah. But clearly they're talking about superhero masks in this book.
Yeah, in this universe, the mask is not the COVID mask. It's the superheroes that the people are upset with for destroying a state, apparently. Because I think they keep saying that it was all of Colorado, but maybe I'm.
I think it's just Denver.
They put a force field around the whole of Colorado.
Oh.
And as far as everyone knows, they're still in there fighting and killing and destroying the world in the name of truth, justice, and whatever.
Okay. Well,
it's been years now. We still don't have an accurate death toll, most because we don't know what's happening. Yeah. So, this is the event when they all arrive, the crossover. And then down here is the force field, I suppose. That little like blue bouncy ball thing. I don't know. Interesting. Maybe I should just reread The Boys, says Gore. I'm not saying it's bad, honestly. I at the beginning I was saying it was just kind of meh for me. Like I didn't love it or hate it. A 7 is like a
But it's funny because you the first thing you said was, well, I'm not going to pick up the second issue.
Yeah.
And even though I rated this much higher than you, I'm probably not going to pick up the second issue either.
Well, my feeling these days is I'm cutting my list way down. I'm getting an average of 5 books a week, 6, and for me, a book's got to be great to make the list, and that's
yeah. I am at the point where if I don't want to go home with the book and sit down and read it immediately, I'm not going to buy it. Like I have to want to read it. I can't be like something where I'm like, well, I liked the last issue, maybe I'll check this next one out.
Yeah. I mean, I'm willing to give an independent usually a couple of extra issues on. So like I'm picking up the 3rd issue of We Only Find Them When They're Dead because I just want to see what it looks like when they cross over. The 2nd issue ended with them attempting to cross over to where the gods were still alive. And I just wanted to see if they can make me interested in an issue 4. But it's the last issue I'm giving them before I let go of that. There's very few books I'm doing that for anymore. I'm giving Detective Comics a go right now because everybody told me how good it was, and I really feel like I'm missing reading Batman stories. So like little things like that, but for the most part, it's got to be an amazing book, and I'm not just going to take chances on stuff. So, I want to be like you're saying. I want to be excited to read it when I buy it.
Yeah, right.
And I did read every single thing I bought the day I bought them late last night. So I read everything. So I didn't have to like grin and bear it. I legitimately was like, "Oh, now let's read the next one. Let's try this one."
Are you suggesting that I quit the show for my own benefit, or also for your benefit, so you don't have to watch it anymore?
Yeah, Kachun's like, "Yeah, just don't do this show anymore."
It'll save me the hour each week to not have to watch it.
He could sleep and not have to read his books. He rushes home and has to read it in 20 minutes before he jumps on the Comic Core show.
Yeah, and make content for the other show that nobody watches.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, the 6 or so books I get each week, I genuinely am curious and excited to read, and I've never really fallen behind on my pull list reading. I've been a good boy. Gorilla Todd, how you doing, man?
What's up, buddy? So yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's funny because for such a big idea, like there's not a whole lot more to talk about. I feel like in this first issue, it was just kind of.
I want to. The one thing I did want to talk about, and usually we don't do this for an issue one. I'm curious where you think this story can go, because I feel pretty strongly that. I mean, it's not an ongoing, right? Isn't it a mini?
I would assume it must be, because in the thing he wrote in the back, he kind of compared it, or not compared it, but like talked about God Country and this as being kind of two sides of the same coin, sort of.
Yeah. So he didn't really actually say. Okay. I was assuming that it was going to be another mini, because I didn't think he had time for an ongoing. So
writing's easy. You can bust out an issue of a book in a day.
Right, easy. So my question was, where does this go in your mind? Because for me, it has to have all the superheroes and villains have to show up, and Image, so they can throw Savage Dragon and Spawn in there. But like, I don't know what else besides that they can really do.
But do they have to have the superhero show up, or can this stay a story about this girl and the young girl and them trying to change the world or change the perception of what, people perceive as being like, is it an allegory for racism? Is it, because she also says in this little speech towards the end, she says, it's about believing in something when the whole world tells you that you're wrong, about trying to find a home when the one you have feels broken or gone. In fact, believe it or not, it's also a love story. So, clearly, spoiler alert, there's going to be some sort of romance angle to it. So it might just be a story about these characters living in this world. It might not be this grand planned thing about, like, the bubble might be in the background the whole time.
I don't know. I don't think I would care to read that. I don't know. I feel like if it was just all the political stuff and none of the other stuff, I think I'd care even less. I don't know.
But it might not be just political stuff. It might be kind of a Mandalorian-esque with these two people trying to escort this baby Yoda girl to safety.
Are you trying to make me want to read it less by comparing it to The Mandalorian? I still haven't even watched the first episode yet. Yeah, so I get the Watchmen TV series-esque vibe, and the idea that like the superheroes are in the background and that the main characters seem to be just dealing with the problems that come of from the superheroes.
Yeah.
I think if you're doing that, I got to really be invested in these characters. I got to really want to care and be interested in what they're doing. And this first issue, I know it's an issue one that's got to sell me on the comic and its idea, seems to be selling me on the gimmick and not selling me on the characters. And I feel like if Watchmen had been selling the gimmick and not the characters, that show would have sucked. But it sold the characters right from episode one, even from the first moments. It was the characters, and then the gimmick came later.
I think that's something that's like clearly easier said than done, though, because if it were so easy, more people would do it.
Right.
I think for me, that's why Strangers in Paradise is something that stands out so much, because the characters are so realized and Terry Moore makes you care about them at such a deep level,
right?
Very quickly. But that's why it stands out for me, because most people can't pull that off.
No, Kachuk, it sounds like the bubble is something that the United States placed over the event.
Didn't it say that one of the superheroes made it?
So it's I can read. I mean, we have the time. Let's just go ahead and read that portion. They're reading the comics, and it said Where is it? On January 11th, the skies over Colorado opened up, and what can only be described as a superhero summer event exploded into our very real world. According to ground reports and footage, almost every fictional comic book character you've ever heard of has been sighted amidst the chaos. You name it, from green men with fins on their heads to men dressed as bats or spiders or gods with giant hammers, people have claimed to have seen them in the footage. No one knows how. No one knows why. If it was a comic, it would be the greatest selling book of all time, but it wasn't a comic book. It was real. And here in the real world, a superhero mega summer event has consequences. And then it shows a news scroll saying, President claims heroes not real, citing mass hallucinations across the entire nation. And then it takes over again. It says, it has been years now, and we still don't have an accurate death toll, mostly because it's still happening. A few months into the crossover, one of the supers had the bright idea to put a force field around the whole of Colorado. And as far as everyone knows, they're still in there fighting and killing and destroying the world in the name of truth and justice and whatever. So there you go.
What's up, Hialeah? Welcome.
That's the setup. Yeah, I guess. So I didn't realize it was a superhero. You didn't realize it was all of Colorado. We could piece this together.
Yeah, it's almost like we should actually read the books a little more carefully.
Yeah.
Not like we do a show where we pick them apart.
I guess what I had assumed was reading the scroll with the scroll of what the president was saying, and then it talked about that. I didn't realize that they had communication with these superheroes. I assumed that it was just chaos. Nobody had actually spoken to them. So when the guy says one of the superheroes had this great idea, it was like, okay, so they clearly talked to somebody about it.
Yeah, who knows?
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I would rather see, a book where it's more ground level, more personal. But I mean, that is the kind of stuff I tend to gravitate towards. Like even with superhero stuff, I like kind of street level stuff a lot more than like galaxy spanning events.
Right. Absolutely. Well, I think I'm pretty much in that boat as well. Yeah. So I have trouble picturing where this story goes in such a way that I would be interested to keep reading it. And I think that was really where I came down. I was like, okay, where does this go? And if it's just her and the little girl running around trying to figure out what happened, and obviously Elle is going to want to get back into the bubble because if somebody got out, she's going to want to get in.
Try to find her parents because she doesn't know her parents died. She just got separated from them.
And then also at the same time balance that with the little girl and trying to keep her safe, because obviously she doesn't hide very easily.
Actually, what's up, Stay Puff Stuff? Thanks for stopping by. Sorry you can't stay. Sorry you got to go to work so late. I haven't read Hepcats. It always seemed interesting, but kind of like strangely overly sexualized for my taste. But if you recommend it, we'll probably check it out. Yeah, artwork was good. I enjoyed the artwork, except for that one panel with the girl's head that looked too big, which was
yeah. I mean, the splash pages were really great. The paneling design was kind of fun. It wasn't like static. It was kind of it moved in interesting ways. So yeah, the artwork was fine. Yeah, I don't know, it just didn't hook me right off the bat. And I can say like the first issue of God Country, I was good. I'm in. I was in for the whole thing. This one just didn't have that. It just didn't grab me.
I think like the difference is, and not to take anything away from Donny Cates, I think God Country was something he was like truly inspired to write, whereas this was kind of a mix of inspiration and just having an idea because he wants to come up with new ideas. And, he talks a little bit about in the back about how he's almost died twice. And that's how both of these stories came about, where the first time it was about like the darkness and, the existential dread of things. And that's what God Country came out of. And this was more about like the hopefulness of being thankful for your loved ones and all this stuff. So clearly existential dread is more interesting.
Yeah, and if it turns out to be half as good as God Country, then I'll probably buy the trade and read it that way.
Yeah, and going back to like why I probably won't pick up the second issue unless it's like a super slow week is that unless a book like knocks it out of the park in a first issue, and I really want to like race home and read the next issue when it comes out, like I just don't have the physical or emotional room to have all these issues in my house. So I'm trying to kind of cut down on what I buy for floppies every week. And if something turns out to be like everyone's talking about it, like I have the first issue, that's the important one for the collection. I don't need 2 through whatever.
Right.
And like you can't sell 2 through whatever. Nobody cares. They want the number 1 with it. And if I don't want to get rid of the number 1, then I just have boxes of books that are just these excess of issues. So if I'm buying it to read it, I'd rather just wait and read it in a trade. And if I'm buying it because like I can't wait to read the trade, that's fine. But otherwise, like I can't. I can't do it.
Yeah, and that's me as well. And I'm the part of the reason I started the edited videos just to really look at my pull list and really narrow the parameters, and also look ahead for this show and kind of look at like where are the number 1s that are coming out, what are the series that I'm enjoying, so that I am feeling like I'm getting my money's. I was spending, $40 to $50 every week, and it was a lot. And I'm down this week. It was 27. I was like, hey, that's good. I'm getting to a reasonable place.
I spent $6 today.
That's an unrealistic expectation with a Hickman event happening. That's an unrealistic expectation.
Well, I luckily am not reading it.
I like to get to a place where I can buy a trade when I go in and be like, hey, I'm going to throw another, I'm going to get another East of West or whatever. And I can enjoy that because then I'm reading the stuff I'm really enjoying. And I'm a happier comic reader when that happens.
Right. Because you don't want to be buying a bunch of stuff that you don't really enjoy, or like you buy because you were reading it, but you kind of lost interest. So it just goes in a pile of these books that you're 5 or 6 issues behind on because you're not that excited to read. And that's what was happening to me.
Yeah. And then you're reading Silver Age. We know what we say about that.
Silver Age sucks.
I think I get far more joy out of that than anybody in the chat. Yeah.
So
the other book I read this week, the indie that I got was Origins.
Yeah, I was interested in it. It looked kind of a cool cover, but my shop did not have it.
Yeah, Boom Studios #1, and I'm committed to at least this year buying all the number 1s from Boom. And I will say I on some pages, like I love the artwork, and I think it's just really just detailed, and then also like somewhat like in the distance it fades nicely. Like I really dig it. And then there's other pages where I'm like, okay, this is a little bit more shoddy. Like everything comes off as kind of flat. I don't know. This section right here where there's supposed to be a guy walking in front of like a
natural history museum thing.
Yeah, like a diorama thing in the Natural History Museum. So I go back and forth. This one seems kind of flat to me a little bit.
Yeah, the baby looks weird.
Yeah, and her face looks like it's on the baby.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of depth to that. So I went back and forth on the art, but it's an issue 1, and I was like, the concept was kind of interesting. So it's a future where there seems to be warring tribes of robots that in some cases look like people, and one of them has it's like a replicator. She finds a baby's skull or some bones, and then like replicates the child. Uses a machine and creates the child like a 3D printer or something. And then it cuts to So that was the baby. And then it cuts to what she says is, now right here. And that's like, she hasn't aged, but the boy has.
So he like grows at an increased rate.
Well, I think that's an actual boy, and I think she's a robot. I think she's an android.
Oh, I see.
There's a moment when she fights a bird or something, and it's just like she just sticks her arm out and then like crushes it. I just get the sense that maybe she's not all human. But again, some of the art I dig, some of it's kind of flat. But younger artist maybe getting started. So I'm curious about the idea. I don't know that I loved it, but there's a ton of post-apocalyptic stuff going around right now. Maybe it's just another facet of the current times.
Well, it's like how more horror movies get made during wartime.
So I've read, what is it? We Live is post-apocalyptic. There's this one, and there's one other one that I've gotten as a number one. That was a post-apocalyptic indie issue number one.
Yeah.
I think I would, of all of them, We Live is the one I liked the most. And I will definitely be getting issue 2 of that one. So I'm not sure if Origins will rise to that level. I don't mind giving it another issue. There's only 6. It's a 6 issue. This is one of 6. So it's not like a huge commitment overall. And I will say that I'm intrigued by it, but you definitely don't get a ton of story. It's a lot more of the setting of the location, what that sort of a post-apocalyptic jungle urban future looks like.
Well, you know me, I don't mind a slow burn.
Yeah, and it definitely is that, and it's light on dialogue, so definitely not a typical Silver Age kind of thing. There's a narrator, and that's like the majority of it is a sort of, I guess it's like a character telling another character a story, and we're just hearing that as narrate. Yeah. So other than that, not a ton of dialogue. So it's more, it's more mood and setting.
Cool. I mean, it sounds pretty interesting.
So I wanted to make sure I mentioned it because it's when you get an indie number one, you want to know if it's worth going out and hunting down. I probably would give it an 8, 7.5, 8, somewhere in there.
So you liked it better than Crossover?
Oh, definitely more than Crossover. I would actually consider getting the second issue versus Crossover. I'll only get the trade if I hear people losing their crap over it.
I finished 3 Jokers. I read book 3.
And?
It was all right.
Okay. Not like it, because Drew, our friend Drew,
said he'll never read another Jeff Johns book.
He's not. Yeah, he is quitting Jeff Johns over how bad 3 Jokers is.
What's up, Jeff Schultz?
Schultz, my man. He was recommending some stuff to me on IG. I appreciate that, buddy. There was a TV series he was recommending to me. Or a movie? God darn it! Now I've already forgotten. I'm sorry, man.
No, I mean, it was kind of hokey, and the whole thing was building up to this one kind of reveal at the end, and it was felt like that was the whole point, was that to get to this stinger, for lack of a better word, of ooh, how interesting.
Right.
So
so there's Todd. Todd really liked it.
I mean, I didn't diss
or the either ends of the scale. It sounds like white whales in the middle.
I didn't dislike it. It was just I don't know. This issue felt kind of rushed for me compared to it felt like the story was bigger than 3 issues.
And I felt that way when we read issue 1. Was there seems like they're going to do a ton. That they didn't do much in one issue, and
but they set up a ton.
Exactly.
Well, yeah, this all hell breaks loose pretty quickly, and they do a lot of story in very few pages.
Schultze was recommending an interview series with Robert Rodriguez interviewing other great directors. Not that he's a great director necessarily, depending on how you feel, but I do like Rodriguez a lot. And it sounds like he interviewed John Carpenter, Guillermo del Toro, Barbara Streisand, So I mean, it does sound very interesting. So that was the one. Sorry, Schultz, I was not able to share it.
Chaos of Comics, you talking about Three Jokers or crossover?
God, if you shit on this book, you don't like comics. Wow. Hot take. I came in and thought you were talking about crossover.
No, we already finished that conversation. I liked it. John was indifferent.
I gave it the hardest grade, Chris. I think I gave it a 7 out of 10, and I'm not interested in issue 2. It didn't hook me. I didn't think it was like horrible and garbage and whatever.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely didn't shit on it. I gave it an 8.9.
He liked it a ton. Yeah,
I did enjoy it. I felt like it was an interesting setup and an interesting way to handle the setup by taking you outside of what would, in a lot of comics, be the natural place to start would be inside this bubble, and it took you outside. Surprise, surprise, I liked the book better than John. That's like the second week in a row it happened, isn't it?
I think maybe 8-9 is high. I agree. It is very high.
For me, especially.
John. I think that's the best comment of the night right there.
Yeah, I'll leave that up there.
I didn't care for the story. I felt like had two choices. Either we're going to go inside the bubble and see all the cool superhero stuff. And in my head, I thought, not with licensing, we're never going to see any of that. So that's out. And the other choice is it's going to be about the political, dramatic, social interconnections of the people outside the bubble. And I don't care for hearing that either. So that was like, okay, I don't want either one of these things. Legit terrified of John reading Sandman. I've got it.
Yeah, and that's kind of one of the reasons why I haven't pushed to read it more on the show, because it would be it.
The first time of my first Sandman. Preludes and Nocturnes.
It's very good.
There it is. I'm supposed to read it this month and talk about it on the Comic Chop News show, Dan's show on Saturdays.
Well, I look forward to being able to be in the chat and roll my eyes at you that way.
Hey, Vertigo and I generally have a pretty good. We see eye to eye unless it's Garth Ennis. I don't see eye to eye with Garth Ennis these days.
Yeah. Well, unless you got anything else, I think we could probably wrap up. It's been an exhausting week.
Definitely.
So yeah. Yeah, it says, to be honest, Sandman Volume 1 is nowhere near the peak of Sandman. I would agree.
Well, you got to start somewhere. I have a plus 5 burrito of eating. That's hilarious. It's a D&D joke.
That's a D&D joke. That's something we play on Sundays, which you should stop by, because they somehow got out of the situation again and did not die, except one player lost an eyeball, and John.
I wasted.
John really overkilled somebody.
Yeah. Well, hey, if you're gonna go big,
it was great. It was my favorite moment of the whole thing so far. So yeah, what else you got going on?
I got 2 exciting things tomorrow, and that's all I'm going to be selling right now. So I got my pull list edited video drops at 6:45 Eastern tomorrow, running down the books for next week, so you can look ahead and see what's coming up. So definitely check that out. Be there for the live premiere if you want to watch it live. The other thing is tomorrow night at 10 Eastern, I've got TJ the Slab Dragon joining me and Justin Rican and his comics, and we're going to look at all the books I had pressed and cleaned this summer. I just got them back, and we got to pick the books I'm sending off to CGC. So we're going to look at the financial realities by looking at the estimated grades and decide, is this worth slabbing or not?
Very cool.
Yeah, including the 2 books, 2 of the New Mutants books I bought from you that should be going in.
Right. The one
that looks like it gets a great bump, and one that's going to be, is it able to hold on tough?
Does the dexterity go down? No, his perception went down.
Yeah.
And his accuracy for ranged attacks or something.
Hey, Kurt Russell had to play basketball with one eye patch in Escape from LA, and he made all the shots in the movie with an eye patch.
How many takes though?
They don't tell you that. Yeah,
Yeah.
half court, mid court, 3-pointer, full court. He made all of them.
It took 3 days of shooting.
Yeah,
I don't know that.
It was the entire budget of the movie.
Yeah, other than D&D and the show, I got nothing planned going on. But if we go into another lockdown, then I might try to make some more content.
There you go.
But I mean, let's hope things get under control and that doesn't happen. Otherwise, I hope everyone is staying safe and keeping sane in these difficult times, and never turn your back on the ocean. Bye.